Today on TimesCast, responding to the pressure of widespread demonstrations, Egypt's ruling military council agreed to name a new civilian cabinet and hold a presidential election by next June.
The ruling military council that has governed Egypt since the ouster of President Hosni Mubarak just announced a new date for its exit from power. They said tonight, bowing to pressure from an enormous number of protesters who gathered in Tahrir Square, that they will now leave power in June. Their previous date had been very indefinite, sometime perhaps as late as 2013 after a presidential election. In the face of that, the military met privately with a group of Islamists led by the Muslim Brotherhood and struck what appears to be a private deal. Liberal groups were invited but chose not to attend the meeting in solidarity with the protesters. The private deal the military struck with the Islamists would provide for a transition of power not now but in June. It's good news for people who favor civilian rule because it means that a constitution, which is expected to be drafted after the election of a new parliament, might well be ratified under civilian rule. But it's bad news in many ways for the political process here because it drives a new wedge between the Islamists and the liberals, who are already quite polarized. The crowd in Tahrir, however, booed the announcement resoundingly. They are insisting that the military turn over at least some power to a civilian government. They want an end to unfettered martial law right now.
If the uprising in January and February was a revolt against President Hosni Mubarak, the scenes we're seeing today in Tahrir Square are an uprising against his legacy. Heard time and again in the square from protesters is a refrain: the revolution was unfinished, the military council must fall. The field marshal, who has acted as the country's leader since Mubarak was pushed out of office, must resign. There's also a notion that the military, that the political class, that other institutions that should be navigating a transition aren't up to the task. In that, there are comparisons to many other countries in the Arab world undergoing their own revolts. In Bahrain, where the monarchy has divided society in order to rule more effectively. In Syria, where President Bashar al-Assad and his father relentlessly stifled opposition and stoked sectarian differences as a way to divide and rule. All the countries have a record of authoritarian leaders being some ways most successful by wiping out the institutions that could guide the transition after they leave power. Egypt is facing that right now. Time and again, the military has made mistakes, so many mistakes accumulating over so long that it took only a spark over this weekend to ignite the protests and demonstrations we've seen in Tahrir Square over the past several days. There's a fear among some that these transitions are going to be so difficult that we might be seeing rolling Tahrir Squares. In other words, the street anger, the street protests that are trying to articulate demands that the political class can't fulfill turn to the street time and again to press those demands even further. No one's talking about elections in Tahrir Square right now. No one seems to be debating over the campaign platforms or which candidate they're going to vote for. It's more generalized anger, more generalized resentment. There's rather a sense, pronounced in chants, written on banners, delivered in conversations, that the revolution somehow was stolen from them.